Welcome to the Everyday Miracles podcast, where real life stories of hope and inspiration are shared. Every day, miracles are happening all around us, yet we rarely hear anything about them. Why is that? I'm Julie Hedenborg, and I've committed my time and energy to bring these stories to you, including some of my own personal experiences. My hope is that you'll be impacted the same way that I was. Join me in my journey to inspire change in a world that so desperately needs it.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Julie, your host, and I have something, as always, something really special for you today. I have a beautiful couple, Elliott and Kayleon Dortch Elliott. They live not too far from me, and I can't possibly list all of their resumes here as an introduction. They're a young couple and they've done a lot in their short time here with us. Andre has a Master of Divinity and he is a podcaster. He's a teacher. He's been a chaplain at a major Carolina hospital. And then we have Kayleon. She is also in ministry. She is pursuing her Master of Theological Studies right now. She has a bachelor's in Christian ministry. So they're both ministers. Kayleon is a writer and a speaker. They have two podcasts. One they host jointly. And they have a testimony to share with you today that is pretty special. They were married. Life was going really great for both of them, and baby on the way. And there was a big curveball that nobody saw coming. And they're here to share that testimony. And what came out of it is pretty special. I think it's going to bless a lot of people. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, thank you, Kayleon. Would you like to start with how things were going before you had your daughter?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, everything was going great. Following everything by the book, after finding out that we were, having a baby, taking vitamins, really following everything by the book. And our daughter, Araya, was due the end of July. And so the first weekend in May, I went into labor. My water broke, and by the time we got to the hospital, I was 7 centimeters, which at the time, because it was almost 3 months early, I wasn't even thinking my water has broken. I'm going into labor. My husband was timing, every time I said I was in pain, and he's like, yeah, these are contractions in his head. But it didn't even cross my mind, I'm in labor because it was so early. So we get to the hospital. They say, yeah, you're 7 centimeters dilated. We're going to go ahead and take you to L&D, which is labor and delivery, because you might need her today. So our whole world just shifted. And, of course, we prayed and everything. But then there was also that we haven't taken any classes yet, because we still had 3 months to go. So we were, going to take the labor and birth and bringing home baby course. So, again, we prayed and, they got their stuff situated so they could come and get us to take us back. And that was a Monday that I went into labor, and I was put on bed rest because they didn't want to speed anything up or slow it down. It was just on her terms, which was good. But then also I wasn't sure how long I was going to be in the hospital because she was due in July. So if she waited until that time, I would just be in the hospital for that long. But they did have me on different medications to make sure that I wasn't infected because my water had broken. So the longer we sit here, the more open I am to infection, and then also to help with her brain development and things like that. So she ended up being born that Thursday night, around 9:40. And it was, I guess, just the strength and the peace that God gave me throughout that week was really unexplainable. I know there's like adrenaline, and then, sometimes you just become numb, but I really do believe that it was God. And she was born that Thursday night. I mean, waterworks, from both of us as soon as we saw her. it was so beautiful, but it was so unexpected. And it was a lot at one time to try to process. And so she came out breathing on her own, kicking and screaming and, all of that. So that was amazing. But, there were some things after then that just were a lot different than what you're taught in the courses about, once your baby is here. So they had to put her under the warmer and go ahead and take her down to the NICU. And so my husband was able to go ahead down with her. And thankfully I didn't have, any complications to where, I had to stay on bed rest. So I was able to go down with him later on that night to see her. And that started our journey into parenthood. And we spent 43 days with Araya in the NICU, which starting out, you don't know where you are, what to expect, how long you're going to be here. So it was definitely new territory. And it was filled with a lot of tears, a lot of tears, a lot of, one day you're like, yeah, I can do this. I have strength, I have peace, I have joy. Other days it's like, how am I going to get out of bed? But you have to, because you want to, see your child, and just processing her being considered like a patient in the hospital. Like you have to sign in and check in, and it's like, I just want to see my child. And not necessarily feeling like you are parents, because you are parents, but it's limited what you can do, when you can hold them, when you can feed them, when you can change their diaper, and you always have to ask for permission before everything. And so there's that feeling like, I know I was concerned about the bond, because I'm not there changing her diaper every time, and we're not always around. Like, how is that going to be if she is able to come home? So it was a difficult time. And just for me, I'm always journaling or seeking the Lord, I have a very strong relationship with him. And even in situations where it wouldn't be someone's first instinct to go to God, I don't really have a choice. So that's just where I find myself. And I had thought about writing a devotional before all of this had happened, but I never like progressed with it. And so ironically, during this time is when the devotional, was born, if you want to say that. And I would sit in the cafeteria, usually by myself, because at that time, really hearing anything from God just really hit me like really deep to my core. Because in those moments you feel very alone. And, at the time, Andre was working full time as a hospital chaplain. And so most of the time during the day, it was just me. And then he would be able to come in the evenings if he wasn't just tired and just had to sleep, which that was another thing. But, I would be sitting in the cafeteria, or even sitting by her bedside if she was asleep, or if I got there and I couldn't hold her at the time. I just remember, just writing just what I felt like the Lord was saying to me. And it turned out to be the 30-day devotional called One Day at a Time. And it's always very special to my heart, because it's not NICU specific. And in the book, there is nothing about the NICU. There's nothing about the fact that I even wrote it while my daughter was in the NICU. But because I know that, like, it's just so special to me. And I didn't really realize the impact that it would have on other people until they told me, like, it's amazing that you can encourage other people, from a time, but I wasn't processing it that way. I was just, trying to find any encouragement that I could. And so just to see the impact that it has had has really blessed my heart. And I wasn't trying to advocate then or encourage someone else then. It was really encouragement, that God was giving to me. And I'll share, I know you had mentioned sharing an example of the devotional. So this is the devotional. It's called One Day at a Time, Remaining in Step, and it's a 30-day devotional. So I'll share from day 15, and it's called In Paradox. So yeah, I'll just read it. Blessings over here, chaos over there. Good news today, bad news tomorrow. Ever feel like nothing's consistent? It's always something, right? Seems like every season is paradoxical to some degree. Paradox is defined as a situation, person, or thing that combines contradictory features or qualities. It is characterized by inconsistency, and it is contrary to what is commonly believed. It involves contradictory yet interrelated elements that exist simultaneously and persist over time. A few biblical examples of this include the reality that when we are weak, we are strong, the exhortation to count it all joy when we face various trials, faith without works being dead, and Jesus physically healing some but not all during his time on earth. So what happens when our theology or understanding of God clashes with his actions? When God's actions just don't seem to line up with who he says he is? It's ironic how the enemy often attacks after a great manifestation, harvest of blessings, or answered prayer. As soon as you come down from the mountain, he's right there waiting, ready to make you doubt the impartation and promise you just received. Maybe the Lord just answered a prayer. You've been receiving blessings, or he has been manifesting himself in your life or in the lives of those around you. But even in the midst of those, there is still a threat, still a constant nagging from the enemy, pressuring you to just give up on God. I know he blessed you in this area, but look over here. What has he done? If he was really your God, wouldn't he answer all your prayers all the time? Why hasn't he shown up? Is the God you serve inconsistent in his faithfulness? Seems contradictory to me. Is this just a paradoxical season, or is it a problem with God himself? These are some of the things the enemy constantly whispers in our ears. How do you have peace when God is healing certain people from diseases and illnesses others are still battling with? How do you have peace when everyone is being blessed but you? How do you have peace when the money you were just blessed with last week had to be spent on an unexpected expense this week and has left you feeling like you're back at square one, broke? How do you have peace when everyone else's situations are turning around but yours? When your prayer for others are being answered, but not the prayers you've been praying concerning your own situations? When he's present and active in this area, but appears to be hiding and silent in another area. Here's the key. Romans 8:28. All things, every contradiction, every paradox, every up, every down, the good, the bad, the indifferent, the victories, the defeats, loved ones being healed in this life, loved ones being healed in paradise, the mountaintop encounters, the battlefield valleys, you fill in the blanks. All things work together. And they not only work, but are working now for your good.
Oh, yes. That was awesome. Thank you for reading that. So this journal, again, it's not NICU specific. It's for anyone who's been thrown a curveball or, had something unexpected or tragic. It's going to speak to them. So anyone in a trial. I love that. Thank you. Did you know, at what point did you realize you were actually writing a devotional that would become a book? Was there a moment?
It didn't really take long. Again, I had the idea before Araya was born, but it was me journaling, and then I'm like, this might fit with the idea that I had before. But I had no idea when I was going to publish it, or at that time I wasn't even in that headspace of, this is business and this is, again, it was just encouragement, but I'm like, yeah, this really goes in line with that idea of one day at a time, and just go with it.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing that God, that's a time when a lot of people are just in survival mode. And we were. Yeah. I mean, It's powerful. It really is. Now, can you talk about some other ways that God maybe showed up for you through people or events that happened during that time?
Yeah. Well, I guess the first thing is just within the NICU itself. Not that you have preferred nurses, but there were a few nurses that really looked out for us and really looked out for Araya. And as a parent that has a child in the NICU, that is so important when you're going home and then you trust, the person that's taking care of your child. And so just to start out, the Lord did allow 2 particular nurses to really look out for us and look out for Araya while we were there. But then throughout the NICU experience, we had a lot of challenges and struggles from family. And it caused a lot of hardship for us. And, feeling alone in the NICU already, plus, those challenges were not easy. And so by the time I was discharged that Saturday after she was born, a lot had transpired within those 2 days that really could have just left us completely defeated and, just in a mental place while going home that would not have been healthy at all. And so we had gone to a Target to grab some things because we hadn't had a baby backpack or anything. So we were going home. So, I'm picking up like lactation cookies and, different stuff from Target before we head home. And Andre was like, do you think maybe we can go tomorrow or something? Because we were so tired and I was discharged that night. I'm like, well, I think I want to go ahead and get it tonight. So we go ahead and we were going to go to a Target that was closer to the hospital, but that one I think it was closer. It wasn't the one we were looking for. So we ended up going to the one by our house. And we get there, Andre was on a different aisle. And so I forgot what I was looking at. And so there's this lady, and I'm in the scooter because I didn't have any complications, but when I would like walk for a distance, like I would have some back pain. So I was just kind of taking it easy. So I was, in the scooter. And so there was this lady, and you try not to really make eye contact unless you're talking to someone. So I kind of figured maybe I was in her way just out of my peripheral. And so I just kind of backed up a little. And then I noticed that she wasn't moving. So I look at her and she's just staring at me. So I'm like, at first I'm like, I'm in the scooter. Like, where's Andre?
Help. Stranger danger.
So I just kind of look and she looks at me and she says, can I pray for you?
Oh.
So, at the time I was like, I thought she was looking at me being in the scooter.
Oh.
So I was like, I just gave birth to my daughter, and we're headed home, but I'm just trying to take it easy. So I'm just in a scooter just to take it easy. And so she was like, but I still want to pray for you. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Cause she was like, if you're okay with that. So I was like, yeah, sure. So she asked, when Araya had been born and just little things like that. And so she was like, yeah, I want to pray for your family. And so Andre comes back on the aisle and I'm like, oh God, because I'm always either caught talking to strangers or something. So I'm like, he's going to wonder what's going on. So he comes back on the aisle and I'm like, hopefully he'll just trust it, because he was already on guard because, of everything that had gone on. So, she, asked for his name. And so she begins praying, and everything that we had been facing, just even in those last 2 days, she addressed in her prayer. I mean, like word for word. And one of the major, takeaways from our dialogue with her and just her prayer, she told us, you all are fit and qualified to be Araya's parents. And she goes on and basically prophesies over Araya's life and just reassures us as parents, which is, I mean, beyond what we needed at the time. So we finished with her. She like leaves the aisle. We still have not seen her to this day. And I'm like heading, because I hadn't even gotten to the aisle that I was supposed to be on, because I was supposed to be just going for the lactation thing, but I was on a completely different aisle. And I'm like, if I hadn't gone there, or if we gone to a different store, or didn't even go to the store, we would have never encountered her. And I mean, that was like a shift, because we felt like really defeated. And, you know, the things that we were being told were as if we weren't qualified to be Araya's parents, and, you know, just very hurtful things. And so for her to say that, it just shifted, and like, it was kind of like an impartation. Like when we talked about it, it was as if God used it as an impartation of like this strength and just confidence as parents. And so, you know, I'm headed to the cookie aisle, and I'm like crying. I'm like wiping my eyes. I'm like, people are gonna think, they're just gonna be looking like, what is this lady in the scooter doing? But it just touched my heart, and it was like exactly what we needed, because I was so concerned about going home and, you know, just trying to face just being left to your own thoughts, and he's going back to work and just all of this. But it was just so encouraging for both of us. So, you know, I just got my tissues and stuff going down the Target aisles, but that was really a blessing for us. And I think without that encounter, I'm not sure if we would be at the place spiritually and yeah.
Wow.
And the Lord sent strangers. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, you know, we decided to start a family prayerfully, but with the understanding that we were going to have certain support systems in place. And every single one of those support systems, people-wise, fell through. And, you know, and it's not, you know, to their fault or our fault, but it's just how the story was designed to have been written. And so the Lord really showed us that, you know, he cares for us so much that whether it's through people we know or people like the woman in the Target who we've never met and may never see again, but the Lord will send strangers and people to minister, you know, through your affliction.
And to remind you that he's there. And, you know, I'm just going to share about his experience, but I did want to add this. When we were dating, I mean, of course we were dating to marry, but we hadn't really gotten into conversation about marriage and starting a family. And I think we were getting ready to go out to eat. He was getting ready to pick me up from my dorm because we were at the same college at the time. And so the Lord just gave me this word for Andre. And so we like go out to dinner, and I'm like, I know this is super random. Like I wasn't even praying when I was just getting ready. And it was just, you know, the Lord just imparted this. And so I told him, you know, the Lord had let me know that whenever he was to start a family, that it was going to be like so different. It was going to be different to the point where it would be as if he started his own bloodline. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And which at the time I wasn't even processing, like, we're dating to marry. That means that's going to affect me. Like it was just a specific word for him at the time. And the Lord had let me know, like, it's going to come. It's not going to be received well when he does, but it's meant to basically like trailblaze and to establish this new system. And so, you know, I told him that. So we, you know, years have passed.
And after that, there were many other confirmations from people who would, you know, speak the same word. And it was just unbelievable. And so when we got to this season of paradox, as Kayleon read about, that's one of the things that came back to our mind. You know,
because I was upset. I was mad, and I'm like, Lord, why are you allowing this to happen? Like, and not even beyond her being born prematurely, why are all our support systems falling through? Like, why? Why would you let this happen? Why are you allowing, these things to be said, these things to be done? And that came to mind. And I told Andre, I was like, this is it. But then at the same time, I'm like, this is it. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be this hard. And I think like we don't even realize that when we're talking about things like generational curses and generational patterns. It's kind of like a badge of honor when we talk about it, but in reality,
it's tough.
Like to get to that bad, like you're so tired from trailblazing and trying to be obedient that the badge is not even like, I mean, if you get it, it's okay. But I had no idea. We had no idea that establishing this new bloodline was going to look like this, was going to cost this much, and was going to be like this lonely of a road. And so yeah, I just wanted to share that because that was also just something that God brought back to our remembrance. And I'm glad he told us when he did, because otherwise I wouldn't have even, if I would have remembered before we got pregnant, I would have stayed like, nope, I don't feel like having children right now. I would have just stayed in that vein because I'm like, nope, like it would have been my will over God's.
Yeah.
But but it was reassuring when he reminded us of that.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's powerful. He was preparing you for all of this. And then the woman, I mean, I love Target, but the woman in Target, it's amazing. Yes. That's so beautiful. So now during all of this, and you have more things we want to cover, but before we get to the journal and the other outreach that you have as an advocate for NICU parents, that's awesome. I want to talk to Andre about his perspective. During all of this, if you can explain your side.
Yeah. So the week Araya was born was my last week of divinity school. It was the week I was set to graduate. So graduation was that Saturday. And we were going to leave because the divinity school I attended is in Virginia. So we were going to take a 3-hour trek on the same day she was born.
Wow.
So if Kayleon didn't go into labor 4 days before, we would have been on the highway. And so I'm in the hospital writing final papers, emailing professors. And, we started this journey when I was on MT. I had spent 3 years in divinity school full time. Courses, just assignments, long nights, early mornings. And I was tired. I was very tired, very worn. And so it was kind of like, I don't have the strength to really go through this experience. Because I've just been through a 3-year journey of, learning discernment and all of that. And so I was very tired. And one of the things that helped me initially, I was talking with one of Araya's physicians on the phone right before Kayleon was discharged. And, I'm asking all of my questions and, I'm just in the mode, we got this, we're going to do it. And the doctor basically tells me, slow down. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And that just captured my heart because I'm a fast starter. I started preaching when I was 9. I came to faith at 6. Ordained in ministry at 16. So I'm a fast starter. You put me on the track, I'm gonna run. But this was a different type of race, and so I really had to slow down. And just during that time, Kayleon, she asked me all the time, well, what advice would you give NICU dads? And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, what would you have wanted? And I'm like, I don't know. But really, just thinking and praying about, being with you today, I was, just really thinking for, NICU fathers, it's really important to be a gatekeeper. And that's really what I had to be. I had to be a gatekeeper, between us and the staff, communicating our expectations with them, and then also getting expectations that they have of us, and trying to find common ground, and also doing the same thing with family. And 2 weeks after Raya was born, I started working as a hospital chaplain for a 1 year full-time program. And full-time wasn't 40 hours a week. It was about 56, 60 hours a week. And overnight shifts. And we knew that. That was something we were aware of. But we had this plan that, okay, she's going to be born in July. That's going to give me some time to get used to the new job, get some time built up for vacation, all of those things. And that plan didn't go through. And so it was really a time for me to trust the Lord, and learning how to, as scripture says, comfort, those who are in affliction, with the same comfort I was being comforted with. It wasn't after, I went through, we went through this particular time, but while we were going through it, and it helped me, as a chaplain, to be able to provide care and advocate for families, because I knew how it felt being a family member. Especially, when I would go in the peds department, Mom, Dad, I know what you're feeling, or I have some type of framework for how you're feeling. And so that really was more on the job training than anything else. It really shaped my pastoral identity, a formative year. Those 3 years of divinity school paled in comparison to this 1 year of actually doing ministry while being while wounded. And so it was a special time. I will say that just watching Kayleon's strength in it all was unbelievable. I remember maybe 2 days after Araya was born, and I wheeled Kayleon into the NICU, and we're washing our hands, scrubbing down, and there's all these babies in the NICU, different pods and sections, and we are way on the other side of the NICU. The doors are closed, but we could hear babies crying. It was just a bunch of babies crying, and we're washing our hands, and Kayleon looks at me and says, "Take me to her right now." And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Take her to me. She's crying." And I was like, "All of these babies are crying." She's like, "Take me now." So I was like, "Okay." So I took her, and sure enough, the isolate is closed. The door to the pod is closed. Babies are crying. Araya's in the isolate crying. And for me, that's when I knew, okay, there's more than just an emotional, mental bond. There's a deep spiritual bond, between a mother and her child. And so just to see her strength and all of that was ministering to me, and still does.
That's beautiful. And, I don't know if Kayleon knows this. I know we've talked, but I got to see chaplains work up close when I worked in the hospital I was in nursing for 26 years, something like that. And I love chaplains, and I have tremendous respect for chaplains. For those listening, chaplains are the ones that we call when people are passing, when catastrophic things happen. They come and provide spiritual care to people of all different faiths. Could be very different from their own, but they come and they offer so much comfort, because in those situations as a nurse, we're busy. We're very busy because this person is got a lot of needs clinically, and it's always been such a great thing to have chaplains to work alongside. So much respect, and I can't imagine comforting people in those kind of situations when you're feeling your weakest, and you've come through, and you said you were starting all of this on empty, and to show up and be strong for other people. I just think that can only be by God's grace. I mean, it's just amazing. So much respect for that. So thank you guys for being so honest and just open about this. And I want you to share, if you would, a little more about the NICU journal. And I know you've become a NICU advocate. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because as a nurse, I'm thinking journal, like, okay, feedings, pee, poo, like all the clinical. Explain it. That was my initial reaction, but obviously there's more to the journal. And if you can explain, that is NICU specific, but if you can talk a little bit about what you're doing now to help other families that are going through NICU stuff.
Yeah, so after she was discharged, which again, we spent 43 days, so that was around June when she was discharged. I wasn't planning on being an advocate. I really thought I needed a lot more healing before I could even come close to advocating. But that's not the way things worked out. And so I, realized we're not the only ones that have gone through this. And there were a lot of things that I noticed that I would have liked to have had when we were in the NICU. And if I don't know, this is just how I'm wired, but if I couldn't, have it at the time, I'll try to see what I can do to make sure that other people have it. And so the 45-day keepsake journal was something that was birthed out of that. And so there are inspirational phrases and just encouraging words on each page, and these are for NICU moms, just because, he had a completely different experience, than I have. And I'm really excited about him, finally being in a place where he can advocate now, so he can touch on the dads. But I really wanted to target the NICU moms because just as a mom, I can only imagine how you're feeling, but there is a common ground just being a mom. And so they're, encouraging words that I wish I would have heard. And so I, extend those to the moms. There are self-care tips. Some of them are even just, create a playlist that reminds you of your baby, play it on your way to the hospital, on your way back. Just practical things that you can implement just to make sure that you're still taking care of yourself, because there's so much you're balancing in the NICU. Something is going to fall through the cracks, but hopefully, it's a resource that can help bring a little bit of balance. There is space for moms to write about their feelings. So I feel I'm worried about and I'm grateful for. And so you have that throughout the journal. And at the end, there's space for parents, nurses, grandparents, any family members or staff that would like to write love notes. I call them love notes to the little ones, so that, once everything is over, and prayerfully it will be, that you'll be able to share that with your child when they get older, and just leave notes and things like that. So that is the keepsake journal. And it has done very, very well. I had just been blown away by how needed this was. I didn't even realize it. Again, these things are extensions of things that I wish I would have had. But to see that it is still a need, it's been purchased and donated to different organizations just across the country, in the UK, all over. And it's just been amazing to see that, and to see the impact that it is having on NICU moms. And not too long after that, I created a planner, and that's where the feedings and all that stuff comes in. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a planner for NICU moms. I do have other, non-NICU specific things, but these are just the NICU specific items on the planner. There is, of course, just for you to plan out the week, but then also there's, you could track your exercise, you can have your shopping list. There's a space for you to write an inspirational quote, your quote for the week. You can track different milestones. There's like a milestone tracker. So I left those spaces blank so you can fill it in, because everyone's experience is different. And it goes by, it's like a chart for the week. And so you can check off like they gained weight, check, for each day. Just because I know when we were tracking milestones, we had to keep it there, which I'm sure we probably could have written it down on our own things, but it's good to have everything in one place. So it's like for you to have your personal planner and take, your baby's milestones and all of that in one place. So those are the NICU items that I've come out with, and I have been on podcasts to talk about our experience, which before then I had NICU guests on my podcast. So that was NICU parents, nurses, dads and moms. And that was before I ever, shared our story. And I think through hearing them talk and share on my podcast really made me comfortable sharing. And again, like I felt like I had to reach a certain place of healing. But I found that with every interview that I was having, it became easier to talk about. I didn't feel as alone. And, that was just important to me. And so, I started raising NICU awareness without sharing our story and just sharing other people's stories. And then it got to the point where, okay, like I do feel comfortable, like sharing our story. I know I'm not alone now, and that this isn't a story that has never been heard before. And so that gave me the courage to do that. And I even went so far as crafting a TED Talk about not all motherhood being treated equally. And so it's not just us, me sharing our story, but it also gets into solutions for like healthcare professionals and things like that to bring about change in terms of the NICU experience from as soon as you're in the NICU. Well, before you even get to the NICU, like incorporating NICU and preterm labor education into the prenatal curriculum. When parents are new to the NICU, having an introductory session just to introduce them, like this is what the NICU is, this is what you can expect. Getting them familiar with the staff, having old parents to come and to share their experiences, and just establishing that community like on the go. Because, when it wasn't until she was discharged that I found out that there is a NICU community. I had no idea. So just establishing that from the beginning, familiarizing with terms, because we were writing down terms and looking up later, because you just have to go because they're in that mode. But having that introductory course and having access to mental health specialists throughout the NICU, that's very important. And then finally, just the discharge process, having a discharge specialist to, once you have set on a discharge date, having someone that can be hands-on with the parents, because the nurse or the doctor may not be able to do that, but having someone that can walk them through the discharge process, because it was pretty rushed for us, and trying to learn CPR and all that stuff like on the day before they're discharged, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So, being able to take your time with that, and then having follow-up with the parents at least up to 2 weeks after their discharge, because you have to set up a pediatrician, eye doctor, all of these things. And, once you're out of the NICU, it's like, who do I turn to if I have questions and, things like that. So those were just some of the solutions that I offer through that, which I was able to interview and audition, which I haven't been able to actually present it. That's a goal, but in the meantime, I try to, still advocate for it, and not just wait until that opportunity, but sharing it along the way. But yeah, so the initial goal was not advocacy. I didn't think this would happen until years later. But I did find that there is healing in helping bring about healing for other people. And God has definitely used the advocacy as a healing tool for me and for us.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful what has come from this and how far it's gone and how many people it's blessing. And I'm just thrilled. I'm going to list all of the resources, but quickly your website, if you can share that for people that want more on the NICU resources.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a business. It's called By Grace Not Perfection, LLC. So the website link is www.bygracenp, that's for not perfection.com. And you can find everything there.
You can find the podcast links. You can find
Everything.
All the NICU stuff. A long list of all the things that have come from it.
All the things.
It's so amazing. And I just thank you so much for sharing this. It's so powerful. And I think especially right now, as we record this with COVID going on, I think there's got to be more isolation than what, wouldn't you imagine?
Yeah.
I don't know how, I mean, it's not, the NICU isn't a place where you have a lot of people coming through because it's the NICU, but still to have people coming in and out, it's really limited right now. So I think these resources are even more valuable right now. So, thank you so much for sharing. It's been such a blessing today. And if you don't mind, I know there's people listening and maybe their situation isn't even a NICU situation, but they've been thrown a curveball somehow and they're feeling empty or they're feeling discouraged. And would you mind, one of you, praying over the audience today that's listening?
Sure, absolutely. And, as we pray, one of the verses that carried us through the NICU was Psalm 126, verse 6. He who goes forth bearing seed and weeping will doubtless come again with rejoicing, with shouts of joy, bringing his sheaves with him. And so we carry that with us. We were going to the NICU crying, carrying milk, carrying clothes and all of those things, believing that she was going to come home, and by God's grace, she did. And so.
And how is she? I should have asked that.
Oh, yes. No, we should definitely close that. She's doing great. And now she's running the house, especially because we're all quarantined. But she has done amazing. She's almost 15 months. She has her little teeth, and she's running the house. She's doing amazing. I adopt all of those things. She's just done very great with just a bubble of personality and just doing very well. So we are so proud of her and just really happy. Every day is a miracle. And just, waking up and having her home. And, sometimes it does get stressed, when you have a young child and you're trying to work and you're trying to do all of these things, but it's like, I would take this any day over, so every day really is a miracle. But she's doing amazing. She's almost 15 months.
Yes.
And,
she lives up to her name. Her name means Lion of God.
Yeah.
So she's our little lion.
Oh yeah.
Now she's roaring, I guess. She does this little growl now. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But, so it's great. Let's pray together.
Yes.
Almighty God, we bow before you in thanksgiving, thanking you for the opportunity to come to your throne, a throne of grace, not a throne of judgment or condemnation, a throne where we can find grace to help in our time of need. And Lord, we pray together for those who are experiencing hard trials, hard times, hard tribulations. Lord, you are aware with our suffering, because you yourself suffered and you died that we might live. So, Father, I pray that you will comfort those who are listening now, who are in peril, who may be in a dark place. I pray, Lord, that your Spirit will find him or her, that person who's watching today. I pray, Lord, that you will rewrite their story, bring about a sense of restoration, of healing, first within them, and then moving externally in their lives and in their relationships. Lord, we also pray for those parents who are in the NICU with their babies, who are in the ICN or whatever the unit may be called at that particular hospital. We pray, Lord, that your Spirit will manifest himself very evidently in their lives, in the lives of their family, and for their little baby. Lord, we pray that you will comfort them and that you will work through the staff and their support system that they may have. Lord, that you will use them to bring about encouragement. Lord, we thank you that you are with us. You promise to never leave us. And Lord, I pray that you will allow your will to be done in our lives, in our situations. And Lord, we realize that every paradox, every problem, every trial is working for our good and ultimately for your glory. It's in the name of Jesus, our Lord, we pray. Amen.
Oh, thank you for that. It was beautiful. It's just been a pleasure. I can't think of any better way to end it. So thank you for listening today, and please check them out. All the links will be attached, but just been wonderful today. And if you have a miracle or a testimony that you would like to share with me, please reach out to me at everydaymiraclespodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much. God bless.